Hi, welcome to part 2 of Take Control of Your Form Data, previously known as Spreadsheet Without Numbers. In this session, we're going to take a look at how you can take the data that is collected by your form, put into a spreadsheet, and we're going to clean that up. We're going to take a look and build on what we did last video, and we're going to be adding some extra advanced functions, especially with some reports and stuff like that. There's 2 links down in the description. If you want to click on those, there's a handout and there's a worksheet that you'll be working on as we go through the session. My name is Trevor Beck. I'm a Google Apps for Education certified trainer as well as an innovator. I've been working at a MacEwan University here in Canada for over 30 years as a technology coach. All right, let's take a look at those links. So in the first link, we're going to look at the document, and this covers everything that we are going to be talking about. So we have some commands, so these under the menus, the named range and data validation, we'll take a look at that. We're going to look at 4 functions, the COUNTIF function, VLOOKUP, QUERY, and IMPORTRANGE. We're also going to take a look at 2 add-ons, formRanger and CopyDown. And these add-ons will take your work that you're doing in your spreadsheet and make it show up into your form. So you don't have to actually update the form, you update the spreadsheet to get the stuff to update. That's a very cool function and will really take you to the next level with your forms work. All right, let's open up that spreadsheet. So here's what we've got. I've created a form and the form is populating this spreadsheet. And there's 2 fields in my form. There is the name and problems. Now this is basically a form for people to submit information about problems they're having in their apartment or their student residence. So you'll notice there's all these different problems here. We've got fans broken and stuff like that. We also have a backed up toilet and someone also has a toilet backed up. Now they both mean the same thing. The problem though is if I'm going to use a filter or something like that to go through and say, hey, I want to see all the backed up toilets, I might search for the phrase backed up toilet. These items won't be included because it doesn't match the filter properly. So that's where data validation comes in. If people are filling out this spreadsheet directly, then if they choose from a drop-down menu, that's great because now we have that consistency. We can make sure that our filters are going to work properly and give us all the information we want. So how do we do that? How do we create these drop-down menus? Well, we're going to use a tool called data validation. And data validation basically means, hey, pick from this list. So I've selected the column that I want. I could select the whole column here and then just unselect the problem there. I use my control key or command key, depending on whether it's a Mac or Windows you're using. But there's my whole column that I want to have available. And I'm going to go under data to data validation. Now, most people will start off with list of items. And this allows you to enter what you want right here. So I'm going to put in dog and cat and mouse. And when we go to this list, there's dog, cat, and mouse. And I can select that item. And this way I have that consistency we were talking about before. You'll notice the little red marker there. All that means is, hey, you've asked for a data validation of dog, cat, and mouse. Whatever you've put in here does not match that. Notice down here, we don't have that red flag. So that doesn't mean that you can't put it in. It's just saying, hey, you've asked for this list to be chosen from. You've entered something that's not part of that list. Okay. Now here's a problem that we have though. Let's say that this choice list that I'm using, this dropdown, is used in 4 or 5 different sheets in this spreadsheet. So by sheets, I mean the different tabs at the bottom. Well, then I would have to manually go through each one of those things, select everything, go under data, select the data validation, and update the sheets there. So that becomes very onerous if I'm using this all over the place. So what I can do instead is I can reference a set of cells instead. So here's a list here. I'm going to use this list here to be my drop-down list. And it can be linked to, as I mentioned, to like 10, 15 different places. So to begin, first select the columns or the cells that you want to have the drop-downs on. I'm going to go under my data to data validation here. And I'm going to enter a range. So by entering a range, I can manually put in those cells that I want. So E3 through E10. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on here. And I'm just going to go to here and click and drag. I'm going to get the same result, F2 through F12 in this case, of all the elements that I want. And it's going to be applied to the cell range of D2 through D12. Excellent. So let's hit save. And you'll notice now that I've got the drop-down menus here. Notice how something isn't spelled the same. Well, it's not that. It's just that it's actually missing. So I'm going to go into here. I'm going to copy this here, bring it over to here, and paste it in. Now when I take a look, actually let's do this again. I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to use paste special. So I just want the values only, and that would be Command-Shift-V for me. So there's my values. I've pasted it in. Don't need anything else involved in it. Now watch what happens. The red goes away from there. I've got the drop down in here, and it's already in place. Excellent. The problem now is that as I add new stuff in here, I have to manually go through and add this stuff in all together myself. And I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I am still going to reference this set of cells, but I'm going to use a function that's going to go through and grab all the elements in here and bring them over. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the function called unique. The unique function basically says, hey, point me to a list of elements or a list of cells or a list of content, and I will just pick out one of each. So even though we've got stuff repeated here, I only want to see it once. So let's watch this. Equal to unique. Click on that. So what's the range? Well, this is the range right here. So I'm just going to select the whole thing there. And remember, we have to do a comma after each of these items. And I'm going to expand this here so we can see. So do you want unique? Yes, I do. Do you want to, whether it's filtered by columns or rows? We don't need to put any of that. We can just put in an end here. And there we are. There is one of each of these things. So backed up toilet, toilet backed up, fan broken on the stove, dishwasher not draining. There's only one of each of those items. And you know what? See that toilet backed up? That actually should be backed up toilet. So I'm just going to change that so we have consistency there. Backed up toilet. Notice our list is quite small. If I add something in here like, I'm just going to put dog with bone in here, it'll show up in there. Now, it's going through, and as new stuff gets added, it puts it in the list here. But ideally, I would love to have this sorted by, well, chronologically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into here. I'm going to grab the unique piece here, because I'm going to reference that in a second. And then I'm going to use the sort function. And we've used the sort function before. But this way, we're going to go through, it says sort the rows of column and range. Now, I could just go, if I sorted this whole thing, it would just give me that whole list sorted, but it would include all the duplicates. Instead, my range is going to be that unique D2 through D12. So it's still that list of stuff here, but only the unique items, right? So I'm going to put that in there. We only have one column, so we're going to do that. Do you want it ascending or descending? Yes, I want it ascending. And look at that. Backed up, broken, dish, fan, L. Everything's in alphabetical order. If I put in here gopher, which is not in alphabetical order, it is now. So this is great because as new stuff gets added here, so let's say I decide I want to, I'm going to add something. Tim's going to add something here. He's got a stovetop busted. It gets added there, but the next person can also look through the list here and see all the stuff there as well. So I have this drop-down menu that automatically updates itself, which is very, very cool. Now, I may want to have a count. So over the week or the year or whatever, I might decide, well, how many dishwashers did we have broken, or how many times did we have to replace a window? Well, let me just show you something really quickly with the filters. So I'm going to use a filter, not a filter view. This is a little bit different, but a filter basically just allows me to quickly just show me what I want to see and nothing else. But when you're using a filter, remember, it affects anyone else watching this. So I'm going to go into here and create a filter. There's my drop down. I want to see all of the fans broken on stove. So I'll clear all this, scroll down, or if it's a long list, I can just type in fan. There we are, and hit OK. So there's all of them, and if I had a long list, I can actually just select them, and down the bottom here it'll say count for, because that's exactly what we're doing here. We're just going to count how many of these items there are. So this is a quick way of doing a count for these things. Now the problem with that is as I go through all this stuff, I would have to go and manually do that for each individual item, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to use the COUNTIF function here, and what the COUNTIF function basically says, hey, go through this list here. Every time you find this item here, whatever that happens to be, count it. So, And because this list here is based on these items here, they should be an exact match. So let's go into here. Oh yeah, just as a quick note, I've got in here the little black spots here. These are the notes in there that I've put in. So if you ever get lost or want to try and figure out what the code is or something, just go ahead and look at the note there. I've put in the formula in there already. All right, so COUNTIF, let's put that in. COUNTIF. So what is the range we're looking at? Well, it's this range right here. What's the criteria? The criteria is backed up toilet, F12. That's all I need. I'm going to hit close. It's going to say auto suggest. I just want you to hit no for a second because there's something that's really important for you to know about this before you start using that function. And so we can see backed up toilet. There is how many backed up toilets? So we have our 1 backed up, 2 backed up toilets. Excellent. There's 2 of them. So this is just a function. I can just click and drag this down and it'll automatically populate that. So there's 1 broken window. Yes, there is. There is 0 dishwasher not draining. Wait a sec. That doesn't make sense because there's 1 there. So we know we have at least of them. Fan broken on stove. 1, 2, 3, 4. It says 3. Well, let's take a look what happens with a fill down. So the fill down function basically says, hey, you know what? As you drag down, change the numbers here. So there's F2. That's good. There's F3, that's good. There's F4, that's good. So we know that's working. But take a look at what else is happening here. COUNTIF, D4 through D14. No. It's gone and changed. We want it to say D1 through D12. And that's one of the challenges when you manually go and do a fill down, is it's going to add to everything. So notice here it says D2, D3, D4. So we don't want it to do that. Now, there's a couple ways of doing this. I'm going to show you the easiest way. Anytime you're referencing a column here, instead of putting that information in there, we're going to use what's called a named range. We're going to give this section here a name. That's really all it is. So I highlight my column, and this could be the whole column, or this could be different elements. I would suggest, highlight the whole column, except for the first one there. And then go under my data validation, or sorry, not under data validation, go under data here to named ranges. So my named range here is going to be called problems. So anytime that I want to reference this section here, D2 through D13, it's called problems. Okay, so remember that. Anytime I want to reference it, it's that. So let's go back up to this formula here. So we see the COUNTIF, and there's my D2 through D12. Instead of using D2 through D12, I'm going to reference problems. So I'm going to start typing in problems. And there is a named range. And it shows me that it is going to be part of the tab here called unique, D2 through D13. That's what I want. Excellent. So I'm going to now go and do a fill down. Watch what happens in the changes, the numbers. The numbers change. Because I can't add, I can't add 1 to problems. Just remember how it was D2, then D3, then D4. So problems remains fixed. It's just going to change the other ones. And now I have all these items here. And as I change stuff, so I'm going to take this and make a dishwasher draining. Notice the stovetop disappeared because, well, it's not there anymore. Dishwasher draining is now up to 2. I'm going to go and change this to backed up toilet. Backed up toilet is now 3. I'm going to add a new item here called cracked window. I don't know. Oh, I have a broken window. How about we do this? How about we do cracked pipe in the plumbing. Cracked pipe is in there and the count's automatically updated. So you can quickly now at a glance take a look at all the different things and items that are here. These items here are automatically updated and added to the list here. You can automatically go into here and do a count. So that's great. Let's take a look though about how I can take this list here and add it to my spreadsheet, my form, because that would be really cool if the problem list automatically updated as well. I'm going to remove cracked up here. I'm going to put back to, or it's going to remove these 2 items here. So let's go back to my, let's go to my form. So here's a generic form that I've created. There's the name, there's the problem. So when I create this, you might have to put in 1 item just because, I mean, typically you're going to have some kind of drop down. But let me go into the edit function for this form. So we're going to use an add-on. And the add-on's called formRanger. Now to get a new add-on, you go under the three dots here, you can go to add-ons, and you're going to look for an add-on called, come back to me, formRanger. Now what formRanger does is it basically gets data from the spreadsheet and enters it as choice lists here in your form. So what I want is I want this list here, whatever it is, to be showing up here. And anytime changes are made here, I want it to show up here as well. And that's what formRanger does. So I'm going to go into formRanger here, load it up. And it basically says, okay, it's going to populate multiple choice, drop down, check boxes, grid questions, or whatever from a column range listed in a sheet. So the only question here that is a choice list is our problem. So I'm going to go and say populate from range. So I'm going to go hit the plus sign and I'm going to create a new range. And it says, okay, well, what spreadsheet are we looking at? Well, I just created this one called copy of spreadsheets right there, part 2. So I'm going to open that up. Which tab at the bottom are we working on? Well, I believe we're working on the unique ones. And which column? So when we look at these items here, so I want the self-generating list column. And we'll go self-generating list. And there becomes all the elements that I want. So I hit next. I'm going to give this a name. It's called problems. We'll call it problem choices. And I don't put a space in there. It just makes life easier. So save and populate. So watch what happens now. Everything that's in that drop down now shows up here. If I was to add something in here, so I'm just going to go smoke detector broken. Okay, it shows up there. All I need to do here is update this question list, and it'll automatically add it to the list there. Now I don't want to do that all the time, so I can turn on form submit and every hour. So what that means is that as new items get added, it's going to be added onto the list. Now what's happening right now, this choice list, the choices that we're looking at is what's going to get sent or get pulled from here. Now if I go into here and I'm filling this out, so I'm going to pop this up, there's this other here. I would go into here and I would type in maybe something like typewriter needs replacing with a computer. So this is an other. I'm going to submit this. Now what's going to happen, because I don't actually have these spreadsheets tied together right now, but what would happen is when I submit this, it's going to go over to here. It's going to add it into the list here. The list then gets added there. And then when I come back to my form, whoops, let's go back to my form. And after I submit it, after an hour or either after I submit it, what should happen is when I come back to here, and I might need to do another submission or else it's going to wait an hour. But once I've done that, it's going to automatically update my piece here. So now you've got a drop-down list that automatically updates itself based on what people put in there. And you can control what gets entered because you're going to go into here. You can add things or remove things in this list here, which adds and removes here, and which eventually gets updated in the list here. So this is a great function using that unique function that automatically updates your choice list. Okay, let's go into the Functions tab here. So we're going to do a little more manipulation here. What I want to do now is I want to take a look at this information here. So I have gone out and I have done some fundraising and I've got these people's names here and stuff. And now I need to assign a coordinator that's going to be responsible for that person, an email for that coordinator. And then I need to assign this person to a driver. Now the driver is actually going to be assigned depending on the postal prefix code that they are going to be assigned to. And as part of that is we're going to also create a full drivers list so that rather than have this data mixed in here, we're going to have a report that just has a driver list and then a report for each individual driver. So the first thing we need to do is we need to assign coordinators to this. Now I've got another tab here called VLOOKUP. And basically, I have a list of different coordinators and their email addresses. What I want to do is just assign the coordinator here and have the email address automatically update. I don't want to spend the time going through and having to look at everyone and then copy paste all over. I just want to assign someone and be done with it. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a drop-down menu here for that list of users. And then we are going to have a function that's going to allow us to go in and automatically add the email address. And that's the VLOOKUP that I've talked about. So let's start off with the first thing. I want a drop-down menu, or a drop-down list for all the coordinators. So I'm going to start by going over to here. There's my list of names. Remember, we are going to reference this. So I'm just going to actually go down to like 14 here, and I'm going to assign a name to this. We talked about this before. And I always try to assign these kind of things as much as possible. So the named range here, it's just coordinators. So I'm just going to call it code, C-O-O-D, and there's my list of coordinators. Let's go to my functions here, and I'm going to select all of this, and we'll go to data validation. Now the coordinator label here does not need a drop down. So up here where it shows you cell range, just go in there and edit that to say, you know what, just cell 2 is all I want. List from a range, well, let's click on this. We've got the ones called coordinators. So we'll just start typing in actually I have to go into here, type into there, call in COOD, or else I can just click on this, either one, hit OK, hit save, and now it's selected that, and notice that's the coordinator. I'm going to go back to my functions and look at that. There's all the names. Perfect. Let's select Beth here. Now what I want is I want an email to show up here automatically. So we're going to use the VLOOKUP function here. So just watch this before you go through the steps, because there's a little trick in here I just want to point out again. So I'm going to go equal to VLOOKUP, VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP means a vertical lookup. So search key, first step. What are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for whatever name shows up here. So I'm just going to select that, hit my comma for the next step. What is the range you're going to look at? Well, I'm going to go back over to here. And in this case, I'm looking up in here and I want this email to be brought back. So I actually need both columns. So I'm going to select both columns here. And then I can just hit a comma, because that's the next step. What is the index? The index means what column here do you want to pull? So this is column 1, this is column 2. I want column 2. And then, is this sorted? Now this is a thing about using VLOOKUP. Whatever this data is that you're looking up on has to be sorted. If it doesn't, you will get false information or improper information. So it's very, very important that your VLOOKUP source is sorted alphabetically. All right, and take a look. Beth Kiss shows up. I'm going to change it to Kyle. Jimson 4. I'm going to change it to Nerda. Excellent. It's all working out just the way it should. So I'm going to do Beth here 3 times. And I'm going to do the fill down that we talked about. Now, wait a sec. Why is it giving me NAs or stuff like that? Well, the reason is back what we talked about before. Look what happened. A3 through B15, A4 through B16. We don't want that. So we, again, should be using a named range. And that's why I always say anytime that you're doing any kind of reference and stuff to anything, just use a named range. It's just a lot easier. So I'll go under the data here, give it a named range, and this time we'll call it coordinator list. Actual coordinator emails. That's what I'm looking at, the coordinator and the email. All right, let's go back to our function here. I am going to go into here, and again, where we've got this range here, I am going to be using coordinator email. Go email, and there it is. So I click there, and it will just finish it up. We'll hit enter. I'll just fill down all the way, just because it makes sense. And we can see Beth's name now works. I'm going to put in different people's names in there, and sure enough, we can see that it's starting to work properly. So I'm just going to go through here now, and I'm just going to put in a bunch of different names and stuff so we can see that. Okay, good enough. So there we've got our list of people. They've been assigned a coordinator. There's the coordinator's email address. Now, we've got these postal codes that we use here in Canada. So our postal code is 6 different figures, a mix of letters and numbers. And what I'm going to show you here, this is a map here of an area in Edmonton, the city I live in. And there's are all the prefixes of the postal code. So they're all grouped together. Also notice that they actually aren't necessarily in a common sense way. We have T5Z and we have T5A and a T6S. So things are mixed up. So they're not exactly the way you would think that they'd be grouped. So what we're going to do though is I have gone in here and I have said, okay, there's that group of stuff. I've got all these people here. What I want to do is I'm going to assign a user. So I've gone in, there's my different postal codes, there's my different drivers, and just for the heck of it, I also put in the color of the map. I want to assign a driver and a color based on this prefix. Okay, so as I'm going through here and adding the stuff here, I'm going to make use of this. Keep in mind again, this needs to be in a chronological order, or sorry, alphabetical order based on the postal code, because that's what we're using as a lookup. I'm going to be referencing this, so let's go in and highlight this whole thing. All right, and I'm going to give it a name, range it, and we'll just call it driver list. And I'll hit done. Excellent. So I got driver list there. So let's use VLOOKUP again. Equal to VLOOKUP. What's the search key? Search key is this postal code prefix. So click on that. What's my range? My range is going to be driver list. So I can just start typing in driver list. There it is. And I want the second column. So we want column 2. And yes, it is in alphabetical order. And with this time, because we know what we're doing, I'm going to say yes, go ahead and do the fill down. Google is smart enough that it will figure out how to do your stuff here. So it's gone through and identified that you want to drop down, and there it is. So T5Z, T5P, T6N. Let's take a look at those. So T5Z, T5P, T6N. So T5Z is Sam, T6N is John, and T5P is Cheryl. So that functionality is working. Excellent. So now I want the color. Well, it's the same thing, it's just the next column over. And remember, I selected all 3 of these columns when we did this piece here. So I can actually just copy and paste this formula here. I'll paste it in here. The difference is I want it to look up column 3. And we'll go ahead and fill down, and there's all the colors updated. And if I need to, as stuff gets changed, it'll update automatically. So here, for example, T6S, well, actually, that should be part of John's stuff here. So I am actually going to change, let's go back here, find T6S somewhere. T6S right there, which is Sam and orange. T6S is actually John and blue. And this automatically updates to John and blue. So we now have all this information quickly assigned to people. We now need to go and create reports. And this is where we're going to be using the query function. So before we've used the sort function, we created a new tab, we used the sort function, and we took the existing columns and sorted them. All right? So we're going to do something similar. With the sort function, we had to do all of the columns together, but I don't need the coordinator and the email. This is a driver's list that's going to be given to the driver coordinator. All he needs to know is what's the name, what's the postal code, who's the driver. That's all that they really need. So we're going to create this driver list using the query list, or sorry, the query function. And if you do equal to query, you can find all sorts of information about that. It is an advanced function. It is a bit confusing. So there is an extension called Easy Query. If you go down and you go and go to add-ons here and you get add-ons, you're going to look for something called Easy Query. And when you install it, Easy Query will walk you through all the steps. So I'm going to go and I'm going to create a sheet. And we're just going to do a single sheet. This is going to be our driver's list. So driver list. That's the tab. Do I want all the columns? No, I don't actually. I only want A and B and let's say E. Whoops, A, B, and E. That's all I want. And I'm going to hit create. it actually builds the query for you so you don't have to know what you're doing, which is great because half the time I don't. So there we've got it, query AB, select A, B, and E, and there's all my stuff. And you can see that it's got all that data in there. Well, I don't care about the name. I'm more concerned about the postal code first, right? Because as the driver who's going to be looking at this sheet, I want to know everything's all together in the right place. Well, that's the cool part about the query function is you just change the order of these items here and it changes here. So I want column B to go here. I got to remove it from here so it's not duplicated. Look, there's my postal code, there's the name, there's the driver. That's excellent. It allows me to go ahead and sort this stuff out. So now I've got this stuff in here. So here's a little advanced code. I want to try and group all the postal codes in alphabetical order. Do I? Well, maybe not, because remember those things aren't always in the same proper order. So maybe I want to do it by driver instead, and that makes more sense. So let's take our driver, let's put him at the very beginning, and we'll get rid of this here. So there's my driver, there's my postal code, there's the proper name. All right, there's Sam, and there's Cheryl, and there's John. I want to get all these together. So what I can do is I'm going to add a sort function to the query function. Now this isn't a part of Easy Query, this is something you have to manually do, but within the quotation marks, I want to say order by, and then I'm going to order by column E. Now keep in mind, when we say E, B, and A, order by E, we are talking about the original data, which is coming from the functions list A, B, E. So don't look at whatever this column here is. That means nothing. This is the data that we're pulling in. We are sorting by column E, which is this column here. That's great. You know what? But it would kind of be nice if I had this sorted and then this sorted after that. So you know what? Let's do column E, and then we're going to do column B. So we're doing a two sort. Notice now we got it all Cheryl, and then after all the Cheryl stuff, we have T5A, T5M, T5N, blah, blah, blah. So this is now all in alphabetical order based on that. So as the coordinator, I now have a driver's list that I can make use of and have a reference number. When someone says, hey, Trevor, I need this, or who's looking after T5A, or where's Cheryl, or blah, blah, blah. So now I've got this list of all those stuff. Excellent. But now I want to break it up. I want to have just Cheryl's stuff on one page and just John's stuff on one page. I could go into here. I could use filtered views. That's the beauty of this. I'm going to go into here and create a filter view here. And I can just say, you know what? This is going to be just all of John's stuff. And in here, I'm going to select this, and we're just going to clear everything and just show me John's stuff. And there's John's stuff. So I could do that. But sometimes it's nice to just have a document printed off for the user to use just by themselves. So let's go back into here. We're going to use the Easy Query function, but this time we're going to put a filter in it. So let's go to extensions, Easy Query, create the sheet. This one will be for Sam. Again, I only care about A, B. I don't even really need E, but I'm going to throw it in there anyway so it can be displayed. And then under filters here, I'm going to say I want column E is equal to Sam. Now there's other functionalities that I can add, or other filters and stuff, but I'm going to just add that one piece in there. Notice there's also more info in the query function down here. This takes you to Google's information on query, and that's where you get really deep into gobbledygook. That's why I like this add-on best, because it's just easy to get my reports in. But I'm going to create that filter. It's going to create a brand new spreadsheet. There we go. And there's my information. So there's the proper name, postal code, and Sam. And I can go back in here and do what we did before, where I reorganize all this stuff, set it all up to sort and all that. And the cool thing is, once I've done it for Sam, then I can just actually go into here. I'm going to duplicate this tab, or this sheet here. So there's a copy. I'm going to put in John here. So this is going to be for John's report. And I just go up here, and where it says Sam, I just change what that criteria is, which is in this case is going to be John, and now I've got John's, and then I can do Cheryl's next. So we now have separate pages that I can print off and then have these great reports that people can quickly reference and just be customized to each individual. So we've got this report, but maybe we don't want to give access to this whole spreadsheet to everybody, right? So let's say John only needs to know about John's stuff, but we have some other private stuff in the other tabs and stuff, and we don't want John looking and be able to see all that. Unfortunately, in order for people to see any part of any of these items in here, they have to have access to the file. That just kind of makes sense. However, what we can do is we can create a separate document and bring that information over. Now, yes, we can go in and copy and paste it, but as stuff gets changed and updated, like let's say we're going to add names and stuff into this list, so that's always constantly being updated, that doesn't make sense. So here's what we're going to do instead. We are going to use a function that basically says, hey, get whatever information is here, bring it over into this other section. So I'm in a separate spreadsheet here now. I'm going to call this the John report. And what I want is all the data that's here in this John sheet, I want it to show up here in a separate document. So we're going to use a function called IMPORTRANGE. IMPORTRANGE basically imports data from one place to another. First of all, there's really two aspects of it. What is the URL? Well, it's pretty easy. Just go over here, copy this, and paste it over into here. Now, notice here it shows that it just shows URL. Take a look at the instructions. Your URL has to be in quotation marks. And it can just go as far as the word edit. You can add, I think you can add the other stuff in there as well. But let's just throw this in. Let's go as far as edit. We'll close that off. And we'll make sure that we put quotation marks around this stuff. All right, then we'll go to the end. Next, range string. The range string is what cells do you want. But we also have to indicate what is the tab or the spreadsheet that we're working in. Notice here it's World Cup exclamation mark A1 through D21, all in quotations. Well, we want John, the John report. So I'm going to do this. It's going to be this range here of A1 through, let's just do C15, just for the heck of it. And it's going to be called John. So we're going to go into here. Whoops. Doesn't matter where I do, it's all the same. Go over to here, to John. That's, and then an exclamation mark to say that that's the end of the name of the tab. And then I want A1 through, I think I said E15. E15. Close quotes, close brackets, hit enter. Now it's loading. You saw it loading there for a second. Well, don't freak out, but what happens is we have to give it permission. So as the owner of this spreadsheet here, I have to say, yes, I'm going to allow you to have access to it. So I just hit allow access, and there it is. Bang, we're done. So I now have access to that data. Any changes that are made here get updated here. And remember again, these are using the query function. You can't make changes here. If you try and do that, you'll get an error message. And the error message will say, hey, I'm trying to write into C7. You made some changes here. We have to go back to our original functions data. So where Beth Kiss is T5Z, if I make any changes here, assigning users or whatever, I have to make it in the original data in order for it to update into this sheet, which then is pulled into this sheet here. Beauty of it though is, here's the John report. The only thing John is going to see is his information, nothing else. So one of the things I want to show you is how you can take those formulas and automatically have them added. Because the problem is that if I go into here, so I've got this form set up, there's my counselor. As people add new items in there, I'm going to have to manually go in and drag and drop and add those formulas, which I don't want to do. I want this stuff to be updated automatically. So the way we can do that is by using an add-on called CopyDown. So all CopyDown does is when a new item comes into here, it basically does a fill down for us. We don't have to do any of that. So let's take a look at what I've got here. So in my spreadsheet here, I've got a choice list. I've gone into here and I have signed this here as a named range called counselor email. I am also using the tool formRanger to grab that list of names in my counselor list here for the students to choose from. But as I mentioned before, when it gets entered, I don't want to have to fill in the email automatically myself. So here's what's going to happen. Based on the first item here of the formula, I'm going to go into my extensions here. And again, you can go to add-ons and get this add-on. Feel free to pause while you do that. But CopyDown is what we're looking for. So I'm going to go, and I've already installed this, so I'm just going to turn it on here for this spreadsheet. So it has to be turned on for each spreadsheet. And as you can see here, it allows you to perform calculations on the same row from Google Form submissions. I'll turn this on. And it's using row 2 here as the copy down. Now, the formula master down sheet, copy down status, that just means, yes, I did copy it down. And you'll see as new items come in how it works. So we know that it turned on. Let's just go ahead and enter something in here. So I'm going to call in here. We'll just call in Jazz. Jazz is my dog. Jazz always needs to find help. I'm going to put in Kylie here, and we'll submit this. Okay, let's go to the spreadsheet. There it is there. And then within a second or two, the email's been added. Okay. And it's basically using that lookup function here, and we've got this piece over here. So you can use this anytime that you have a lookup function where you're going to be constantly repeating stuff. You can just go ahead and do this. Now, here's the thing to keep in mind. So let's say you're doing something like a price list for items, because you could do that with this as well. I put in the item, I put in the price list automatically goes and grabs the cost and brings the cost there. Now that's going to change over time. So if I make any changes here, it's going to automatically update. So notice Kylie is Kylie 4. Let's say that I go into here and I put in another 4 because maybe there's a different Kylie or something. But it updates here as well. Sometimes you don't want that. You want to keep that historical information. And if that's the case, then over here, when it looks up here, it says, do you want to paste as values? Instead of the formula, do you want me just to paste whatever should be in there? And we're going to say yes. So I'm going to go back and just change this back to 4. We're now going to paste as value. We're going to save that. Let's enter in another submission. This time John Wayne's going to be looking for some information. Going to talk to Nerda. Submit. Let's go to our spreadsheet. Whoops, let's go back to form responses. There it is. There's Nerda's name because that's what John Wayne submitted. Look at the email now. Now it's the actual data. And so this will never change. So that's the nice thing. So depending on what you're working with, like in this case, if I had a phone number and suddenly, or let's even use email. Let's say that Beth gets married and changes her name. I would update that. I would want that to be updated everywhere. In some cases, you want the data to be consistent, in which case you're going to paste as values, and that gets applied to all of that. So that's the copy down function, and that's a really great way of taking any formulas that are started in the top here and you need to copy it all the way down. It will do that for you. Okay, so the next thing is an exercise. In this exercise, you are going to be applying a bunch of the stuff that we talked about before. So here is what we have. We are doing a volunteer event. We have a position, these different positions. These are the duties. Here are the number of positions that we need to have filled. Here is my volunteer list. What you're going to do is you are basically going to create a drop down from this list of positions. You're going to create a drop down here. You're then going to use the VLOOKUP to look up that position and put in the duties that are available there. Okay, so I'm assigning these different things to the different people. There's going to be, that's going to get filled out automatically. As you're assigning those positions in this tab, I want to count. I want to know how many check-in hosts that I have here, how many code check people, so that I don't go over. One of the things that you can do from the last session is you can put in a conditional validation in here so that when you hit 2, it turns green. If it goes past 2, it'll be red. And then if you want after that, you can create a report. I think I asked for here, use the COUNTIF, VLOOKUP, create a query report listing assigned position and name. You're going to order it by position, then by name. So as I go through here and assign this stuff, when I'm done, I want a new page that show me all the check-in people that have been assigned, show me all the runners and greeters, and have those assigned into one document, organized by that position. Because I don't care about the names. I want to care about having all the check-in people together, having all the runners together, having the greeters together, so I can quickly look and see who is in those positions. And again, conditional formatting to turn a cell green when it matches the number of positions and red when it goes over. So I'm going to give you some time to do that. You can pause the video at this point in time and go through those things. And then when you're ready, hit play again, and we will go through and I will show you how to do all that. Okay, so let's get started. So first thing I want to do is I am going to create two different named ranges. So first one is I want to have my assigned positions. So I'm going to create a date. I'm just going to go down to 17. Actually, I'm only going to ever need these, so let's do this. So my data range, this range here is just going to be called position. Then because I'm going to do a VLOOKUP on this, I'm going to need one for both of these. So I'm going to call this position duties. Now let's go into our volunteer list. Data validation. Well, I want the assigned position here. I'm just going to close this off. Assigned position here. So my data validation, we're going to go under my data here. And list from the range. What's the range called? Well, the range is called positions. So we'll just pop that open here. Oh, oops, I got spelled positions right. Positions. I did enter a valid. Let's pull this open again. There's the important part. It is called position, not positions. That's why it didn't work. All right, and of course I didn't need that. I should have corrected that to begin with. So just right click on this single cell, and for view more actions, data validation, and I will remove the data validation from that first one. All right, so there we are, positions, check-in host, and coat check, and greeter. Notice again that all this stuff is in alphabetical order, okay? Duties, let's go into here, equal to, we're doing a VLOOKUP. Search key, whatever the assigned position is. What is the range? That is that range we called position duties. There we go. Index, well, we want the second one. Remember, we've got the, actually, let's double check on that. We've got there, yep, we want the second one there. So we're going to make sure this is 2. And is it sorted? Yes, we did sort it. So handing it out, and I'm just going to do a quick fill down here. There it is. And of course, it's got nothing there because it's going to have, there's nothing available there. So that part is all done. I'm just going to put a couple in here just to get started, and then I'm going to show you some more advanced stuff for assigning. So we've got those all, the VLOOKUP now working. We've got the position. We'll get to the query report in a little bit, but we're going to do a count here. So we want to count the number of times it shows up here. So I am actually going to create a named range because we want this again to be done. And we'll call this one assigned. And we want to count the number of times these items show up there. So equal to COUNTIF. What are we counting? Well, the range there was called assigned. So I'm going to start typing it in. There it is. Comma, what's my criteria? This item here, close, excellent, and we'll autofill it down. So there we can see we've got 1, 2, and 3. Now here's what I want to do. I'm just going to go and assign 2 to check-in host. So I'm going to make sure we have 2 check-ins here. Okay, so we have these items matching here. So we've got a count of 2. I want to be notified that I've met my criteria. So we're going to use conditional formatting. Now I've put the note down in here on the equation that we're going to use. So this is actually a really advanced function. So if you stuck around this long, this is bonus material for you. But basically in conditional formatting, we are saying, I select all this, when this here matches that. But because we're applying this to a whole range here, the formula looks a little different. It's E2 through E7, D2 through D7. So that's that whole range here equal to. And when we get more than that, I want to be notified and have this turn red, and that's just going to be the greater sign. When this is greater than that, make it red. So let's select actually we just highlight these columns here because that's the only cells we're going to use. This is the only position, so I don't have to do the whole column. Let's do under format, conditional formatting, E2 through E7. Yep, right now the criteria is not empty. I can do is equal to, but I would have to put in a formula or something, or the letter 2 here or something like that. What we're going to do is we're going to do custom formula. And the custom formula that I copied there is E2 through E7 is equal to D2 through D7. So as soon as these items become match, they're going to turn green. We're scrolling down, I'm going to add another rule. And basically it's the same formula, but this time it's a greater than sign. So when this item here is greater than that, that's what you're going to do. And we're going to change it to red. And we'll hit done here. All right, so E2 through E7 is equal to D2 through D7, and same thing here is greater than. So let's take a look at, let's go look here. I need another runner. So I'm going to go to my volunteer list. I'm going to go to here, I'm going to add a runner. Great. Come back here, it's green. I'm going to add another check-in host. Go add another check-in host. And it's red. So I can basically open this window up, this file, into 2 different windows. And I can have different tabs open in 2 different windows. So I can be looking at both this page and, this page and this page together. So these can be opened up side by side, just by copying the URL, duplicating it, having them on the left hand and right hand. And we'll talk about that in a little second here. So let's look at assigning positions. And the easiest way to do this is actually using filtered views. Now, in the last session, we took a look at how to do stuff. And I mentioned before that if you take a look at my positions here, you'll see there's a number of positions because this was done using checkboxes listing all the positions. These are the items that they checked that they said they were interested in doing. I don't give people the option of saying, you know, give me your first priority, second priority. It's a case of, are you interested in doing this? Yes or no. So they've gone in, they've done their check boxes. So I'm just going to go in and create a filtered view. You can do this ahead of time, but and you know, you can also build it on the fly. But the nice thing is once you've built it, it's kind of rinse and repeat. You can keep using it over every year. So I'm going to go into here and look for the position called check-in host. All right, and what we're doing is we're going to say, I only want to see the people that have check-in hosts. Now you'll notice before there's actually going to be a lot of different things with check-in hosts. There's different permutations and combinations involved. So the easiest thing to do is go under filter by condition and say, if the text contains the word host, that's all I want to see. And sure enough, there we get them. So we can see that we've got these two, these lists here. I only need 2 positions, so I'm just going to assign check-in host here, and I'm going to be done with that. And we can just go into my lookup here, or sorry, my choice list here, and sure enough, we've matched and had 2 of them there. Excellent. Let's now build the same thing for the next position, which is coat check. Now I'm going to go and just duplicate this. And if you don't understand what I'm doing here, I covered this in the previous session, so you might want to take a look at that. So now we're going to look in coat check. Okay. And I'm going to go into my filter here, and I'm going to change it from host to coat check. So I can just type in the word coat because that's the only time it shows up. I'll hit OK. Now notice what's happened here. It's showing me all the coat check stuff, which is great, but I've already assigned this position, so I actually don't need that. So I'm going to go under the filter view here, and as a part of a condition, I'm going to say, show me where it is empty. If it's already completed, I don't care about it, right? Because that person's been assigned. So we'll just hit none. Then I have that. Now my coat check is set up. I'm going to assign my 3 people to coat check. That's done. And basically I would just keep on going. So I'm now going to go and do the same for greeter. And by duplicating this, it's only going to show me stuff that is empty and people have said that they're interested in greeting. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish filling out my form here. So there's my list here. Now what I want to do, according to the instructions here, is we are going to need a query report listing the assigned position and the name. and we're going to order it by position, then by name. So let's go over to here. I'm going to go under my extensions here and use Easy Query. And this is a new tab we're creating. It's called Position List, or just Position Report, let's call that. And I want the assigned position, so that's E. I definitely want E. I don't care about the duties, but I do need the name, so we'll go with C. And just for the heck of it, let's include the email address because I may need to contact them. And then I'm going to create that. There is my items in here. I want the positions first, then the name, then the email. So I'm going to basically swap B and E here. So we'll do this. There we go. That's more like it. I want to sort by this, then sort by the assigned position, then by the name. So I'm going to go into here, and remember we're going to use that order by. So we're going to order by E first, then we'll order by C. And if I spell order right, it works better. And there we go. So some positions haven't been assigned yet. Then we have our check-ins. And again, then they're in alphabetical order after that. So now we've got a report to easily go through. And in case we need to know who a greeter is, hey, there's these 4 people here that are greeters, and bang, we've got a report. And that's pretty much it. So if you liked the video, please go ahead and like, subscribe. I'll have other videos coming out. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your conference.